My name is Wilder Watson and I'm 31 years old. The day I realized my own father had turned my mother's life into a lie. Something inside me broke in a way that never quite healed. It didn't happen all at once. No loud explosion, no dramatic confession, just a slow, sickening realization, like watching a crack spread across glass, knowing it's about to shatter. I remember standing in my apartment kitchen, staring at my phone, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped it. My dad's voice still echoed in my head, shaky, desperate, almost convincing. Your mom, she's not doing well, Wilder. That was the moment everything started, and I had no idea it would lead me to expose him in front of everyone on the biggest day of my brother's life. I wasn't the kind of daughter who ignored her family. Growing up, I was the responsible one, the quiet fixer, while my younger brother Caleb was always the favorite, loud, charming, effortlessly loved. I was the one who stayed up late helping mom with bills, cooking dinners, keeping the house together when dad disappeared into his business trips. We weren't rich, not even close, but I built a stable life for myself. I worked hard, saved every dollar, and slowly built a small freelance design business from scratch. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And most importantly, it was honest. That's why what my father did cut so deep, because he knew exactly who I was, and he used it against me. The first call came late at night. I remember because I had just finished a project and was about to sleep when my phone rang. Dad never called me at that hour. My stomach dropped before I even answered. His voice was different, fragile, almost trembling. Wilda, it's your mom. The doctors found something. I sat up instantly, my heart pounding in my chest. What do you mean? Found something? There was a long pause, the kind that makes your mind race to the worst possible conclusion. Then he said it. Cancer. Just one word. Cold. Heavy. Final. I felt the air leave my lungs. My mom, the strongest woman I knew. Cancer? The next few days blurred together like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Dad kept calling, updating me in bits and pieces. She needs treatment. Insurance won't cover everything. We're sure on money. Every call felt urgent, desperate. And every time, I believed him. Why wouldn't I? This was my father, the man who tucked me in at night when I was a child. The man who taught me how to ride a bike, even if he had his flaws. I never thought he could lie about something like this. Not about her, not about my mom. So when he finally asked, his voice cracking, Wilder, I don't know who else to turn to. I didn't hesitate. I told him I would help. Of course I would help. I started transferring money the very next morning. At first, it was small amounts, whatever I could spare without hurting my business. But it wasn't enough. The calls became more urgent. The treatment is expensive. We need to act fast. Your mom's condition is getting worse. Each sentence felt like a ticking clock strapped to my chest. I began pulling from my savings, the money I had spent years building, the money I had planned for my future, my security, gone, piece by piece. Every transfer felt like I was buying her more time. Every dollar felt like hope. And every time my phone buzzed with another message from Dad, I sent more. But there was one thing that started to bother me. Something small at first, almost easy to ignore. I hadn't spoken to my mom directly, not once. Every time I asked, Dad had an excuse. She's resting. She's too weak to talk. The medication makes her sleep all day. It made sense, didn't it? Cancer treatment is brutal. I told myself not to question it, not to doubt, because what kind of daughter doubts something like this? What kind of person questions their father when their mother is supposedly fighting for her life? Still, late at night, when everything was quiet, that uneasy feeling crept in, like a whisper I couldn't shut off. Weeks turned into months, and the amount I had sent reached a number I didn't even want to say out loud. $45,000. My entire savings gone. My business started to struggle because I was too distracted, too emotionally drained to focus. I barely slept. I barely ate. Every thought revolved around my mom, her pain, her survival, and yet I still hadn't heard her voice. Not a single word. That's when the doubt stopped being a whisper and started becoming something louder, something sharper, something that wouldn't let me breathe. And deep down, I began to wonder a terrifying question I didn't want the answer to. What if something wasn't right? The doubt didn't hit me like lightning. It crept in slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor. I started replaying every conversation in my head, every pause in my father's voice, every excuse that kept me from speaking to my mom. One night, I sat in the dark with my phone in my hand, scrolling through old messages from her. Her last text to me was simple: "Don't forget to eat, sweetheart." That was months ago, before the diagnosis, before the money, before everything started to feel wrong. My chest tightened as a thought crossed my mind, one I tried to push away again and again. What if she never got sick at all? The next morning, I did something I hadn't done yet. I called the hospital my father claimed she was being treated at. My hands were shaking so badly I had to dial the number twice. When the receptionist answered, I forced my voice to stay calm. "Hi, I'm calling about a patient, Margaret Watson." There was a pause as she checked the system. A few seconds later, she came back. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We don't have any patient by that name." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Are you sure?" I whispered. "She's undergoing cancer treatment." The woman's tone didn't change. "I've checked thoroughly. There's no record." And just like that, the ground beneath me cracked. I hung up, but I couldn't move. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe Dad got the hospital name wrong. Maybe she was transferred. Maybe. I kept repeating those maybes like they could stitch reality back together. But deep down, I knew something was terribly off. That same day, I decided I couldn't rely on calls anymore. I needed to see her. I booked a ticket without telling anyone. No warning, no announcement. Just a one-way decision fueled by fear and a growing sense of betrayal that I still refused to fully accept. When I arrived at my parents' house, everything looked normal to normal. The same curtains, the same garden my mom used to take care of every Sunday morning. Nothing about it screamed illness or urgency. My heart was pounding as I walked up to the door and knocked. For a moment, there was silence. Then I heard footsteps, and when the door opened, it wasn't my father who stood there. It was her, my mom, standing upright. No hospital gown, no weakness, no pale, fragile version of the woman I had been imagining for months. Just her. "Wilda," she said, her eyes widening in surprise. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was strong, confused, yes, but not weak, not dying, not anything like what I had been told. I felt my throat close up as I stared at her, trying to process what I was seeing. "Mom, you're okay." She frowned slightly, stepping closer. "Of course I'm okay. Why wouldn't I be?" That was the moment everything inside me shattered. Not cracked, not bent, shattered, because there was no misunderstanding anymore. No confusion left to hide behind. Just one horrifying truth. Someone had been lying. Before I could even respond, my father's voice came from behind her. "Wilda." He froze the moment he saw me, and I saw it. Just for a second. That flicker in his eyes, panic, real, undeniable panic. My mom looked between us, clearly confused now. "What's going on?" she asked, but I couldn't answer her. I couldn't speak, because all I could feel was the weight of every dollar I had sent, every sleepless night, every tear I had cried, crushing down on me all at once. And standing right in front of me was the man who had caused it all. I stepped inside slowly, my eyes never leaving his face. "Tell her," I said, my voice low but shaking. He swallowed hard, trying to compose himself. "Wilder, this isn't the time. Tell her," I repeated, louder this time. My mom's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "Tell me what?" she asked, and in that moment, the truth hovered in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I could feel it pressing against my chest, demanding to be spoken, because no matter how much it hurt, no matter how much it destroyed, it was time for everything to come out. My father's lips parted, but no words came out. He looked like a man cornered, like someone who had run out of lies, but still refused to face the truth. My mom glanced between us, her confusion turning into something sharper. "Wilda, you're scaring me. What is going on?" she asked, her voice trembling now. I took a slow breath, but it didn't calm me. Nothing could calm me anymore. "He told me you have cancer," I said, each word heavy, deliberate. The room went silent. My mom blinked, stunned. "What?" she whispered. And just like that, everything began to unravel. I didn't stop there. I couldn't. Months of fear, pain, and sacrifice came pouring out of me all at once. "He said you were sick, that you needed treatment, that insurance wouldn't cover it," I continued, my voice breaking despite my effort to stay strong. My mom turned slowly toward him, her face pale now, but not from illness, from shock. "Is that true?" she asked him. He rubbed his face, pacing once like he was trying to find the right words. But there were none. There was no version of this story that made him look innocent, and we all knew it. The silence that followed was louder than any confession. "I didn't have a choice," he finally muttered, barely meeting our eyes. That sentence, it lit something inside me. "You didn't have a choice?" I repeated, disbelief flooding my voice. "You told me my mother was dying." My chest tightened as tears filled my eyes. But I didn't look away. I wanted him to see what he had done. "I gave you everything I had, $45,000, because I thought I was saving her life." My mom gasped softly behind me, her hand covering her mouth. 45, she whispered, but my focus stayed locked on him. I needed to hear him say it. I needed him to own it. "It was just supposed to be temporary," he said quickly, his voice defensive now, almost desperate. "I needed money, Wilder. Things got out of control. I thought I could fix it before you found out." His words felt like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. "So you decided to fake cancer?" I asked, my voice dropping into something cold, something unfamiliar even to me. "Out of all the lies you could have told, you chose that." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. And in that moment, I realized something I had never allowed myself to see before. This wasn't just a mistake. This was who he was. My mom stepped back slowly, like she needed distance from him just to breathe. "How could you do this?" she asked, her voice breaking now. "Not to her, not to your own daughter." He tried to reach for her, but she pulled away instantly. That small movement, it said more than words ever could. The trust was gone, completely shattered. I stood there, watching the two people who raised me fall apart in front of my eyes. And for the first time, I didn't feel like fixing anything. I didn't feel like helping. All I felt was empty, because the man I thought was my father didn't exist anymore. "I want my money back," I said finally, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "I don't have it anymore." Of course he didn't. I should have known. "Then you'd better figure it out," I replied, my tone sharp now, "because this doesn't end here." He looked at me then, really looked at me, like he was seeing someone new standing in front of him. And maybe he was, because the version of me that trusted him, that believed in him, was gone, replaced by someone who had nothing left to lose. And for the first time, he looked afraid of me. That night, I didn't stay. I couldn't. The house felt suffocating, filled with lies and memories that no longer felt real. As I walked out, my mom called after me, her voice shaky, asking me to stay, to talk, to figure things out. But I couldn't, not yet. I needed space. I needed clarity, because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about betrayal, manipulation, and something much deeper. And as I drove away, one thought kept repeating in my mind, louder with every mile. He thought he got away with it. He thought this would stay buried. But he was wrong, because I wasn't done. The weeks after that confrontation felt unreal, like I was walking through a version of my life that didn't belong to me anymore. I stopped answering most calls, buried myself in work, and tried to rebuild some sense of control. But the truth is, You don't just move on from something like that. It lingers in quiet moments, in empty rooms, in the silence between breaths. My mom tried reaching out, her messages full of confusion and quiet heartbreak. But I wasn't ready to respond, not because of her, but because every time I thought about going back, I saw his face again. That same man who had looked me in the eye and lied so easily. Then Caleb called, my younger brother, the golden child, the one who never really saw the cracks in our family. His voice was full of excitement, completely unaware of the storm that had already torn everything apart. You're coming to the wedding, right? He asked casually. For a moment, I didn't answer. A wedding, a celebration, a room full of family pretending everything was perfect. It almost felt ironic. Yeah, I finally said, my voice calm but distant. I'll be there. And as soon as I hung up, a thought formed, clear, sharp, unavoidable. That wedding wasn't just a gathering anymore. It was an opportunity. I didn't rush into it blindly. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about truth. I started gathering everything: bank transfers, message logs, call records, every single piece of evidence that showed exactly what he had done: dates, amounts, conversations. I even recorded our last confrontation, the part where he admitted he didn't have a choice. I listened to it over and over again, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to remind myself this was real, that I wasn't overreacting, that I wasn't imagining things. And with every piece I collected, something inside me changed. The pain didn't disappear, but it hardened into something stronger. The day of the wedding arrived faster than I expected. The venue was beautiful, almost painfully so. White flowers, soft music, smiling faces. Everything looked like a perfect picture of happiness. I stood there for a moment, watching people laugh, hug, celebrate, and I wondered how many of them truly knew each other. How many were hiding things behind those smiles? Then I saw him, my father, standing near the front, dressed sharply, laughing with relatives like nothing had ever happened, like he hadn't destroyed something sacred between us. For a second, just a second, I felt my hands shake, but then I steadied myself. Not today. The ceremony went on as planned. Vows were exchanged. Applause filled the air. Everyone stood, smiling, clapping, celebrating love and unity. It almost felt cruel. How life could look so perfect on the surface while something so ugly sat right beneath it. I stayed quiet, blending into the crowd, waiting. Because timing mattered. This wasn't about creating chaos. It was about making sure the truth couldn't be ignored. And then the moment came. The reception. Speeches. One by one, people stood up, sharing stories, jokes, memories. And then Caleb looked at me, smiling. Wilder, you want to say something? My heart didn't race. It didn't panic. It just settled. Like everything had been leading to this exact moment. I stood up slowly, feeling every pair of eyes turn toward me. The microphone felt heavier than it should have in my hand. I looked at Caleb first, forcing a small smile. You've always been the one who brings people together, I said softly. Then my gaze shifted toward my father. He froze the second our eyes met, and in that silence, in that room full of witnesses, I took a breath. Because what I was about to say would change everything. I tightened my grip on the microphone, feeling the weight of every second pressing against my chest. The room was quiet now, filled with soft anticipation, unaware of the storm about to break. I looked at Caleb again, his smile warm, trusting, and for a moment, I hated that this would touch his day too. But some truths don't wait for the right time. They demand to be heard. I wasn't planning to say this today. I began slowly, my voice steady but low. But sometimes, silence protects the wrong people. A few confused glances passed through the crowd, and then I turned fully toward my father. For months, I continued, my eyes locked on him. I believed my mother was dying. A ripple of murmurs spread instantly. I could feel it. The shift in the room. I was told she had cancer, that she needed treatment. That time was running out. My father's face drained of color. his body stiff as if frozen in place. My mom sat there, her hands trembling in her lap, already knowing where this was going. "So I sent money," I said, my voice tightening now, emotion pushing through despite my control. "Not just a little, everything I had, $45,000, because I thought I was saving her life." Gasps filled the room now, louder, undeniable. People started looking at each other, whispering, trying to understand. I didn't stop. I couldn't. "But she was never sick," I said, my voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "There was no cancer, no treatment, no hospital." I reached into my bag, pulling out printed statements, screenshots, proof. It was a lie told by my new father to take money from me. And then, before he could even attempt to speak, I played the recording. His voice echoed through the speakers, clear and unmistakable. I didn't have a choice. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. My father finally moved, stepping forward, his face twisted with panic. "Wilder, stop this. This isn't the place." "No," I cut him off sharply, my voice stronger than it had ever been. "This is exactly the place." My hands weren't shaking anymore. My voice wasn't breaking. For the first time in months, I felt in control. "You chose to humiliate me, manipulate me, and lie about the one person I would give everything for. So now, you can face the truth in front of everyone you tried to impress." He looked around, desperate, searching for support. But there was none, just shocked faces, disbelief, and quiet judgment. My mom stood up slowly, tears streaming down her face. But her voice was steady. "Is it true?" she asked him again, one final time. He didn't answer. He couldn't, and that silence was louder than any confession he could have made. She nodded slightly, like something inside her had finally settled. And then she stepped back from him. That was it. No screaming, no dramatic collapse, just a quiet, irreversible break. Caleb stood frozen, his perfect day crumbling in front of him. But even he couldn't deny what he had just heard. The truth had spoken for itself. I placed the microphone back on the stand gently, my chest rising and falling as everything around me blurred for a moment. This wasn't victory. It didn't feel like revenge the way people imagine it. It felt heavy, necessary, but heavy. I looked at my father one last time, not with anger anymore, but with something colder. "Funnel, you didn't just lose my trust," I said quietly, so only he could really hear it. "You lost me." And then I turned and walked away. No hesitation, no looking back. Some people think karma comes like a storm, loud and destructive. But sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's a room full of people seeing you for who you really are and choosing to step away. I didn't get my money back that day. I didn't fix everything. But I reclaimed something far more important: my truth, my voice, and my self-respect. And as I walked out of that wedding, leaving behind the man who once called himself my father, I realized something I wish I had understood sooner. The strongest thing you can do isn't holding on to family at any cost. It's knowing when to let go.